Suffering Podcast.
We try to keep young feet planted firmly on the ground, making sure their dreams do not become delusions that are unreachable and out of touch, giving guidance where needed, as well as room for growth. Far too many will never meet expectations, and sadly, far too many will never reach their goals. Keeping the fire burning is a job of any good mentor. Fanning the flames and managing expectations keeps the fire from being extinguished. Meeting every child where they're at does not mean it is the end of their capabilities. There's always one more rep, one more sprint, one more mountain to climb, all with the hopes that one day their goals will be within their grasp. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. Don't forget to share us too, because sharing really helps out the algorithm. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome a friend of mine, Jeremy Campbell, all the way from my neck of the woods, and he's a Philly fan. You know how I love to have Philly fans in here. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming up here, because tonight we're going to talk about the suffering of empowerment, because what you do with the children is essential to make them good, healthy, well-adjusted adults. Thanks for coming in.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to ToyotaHackensack.com. Let them find you a car, but also don't forget to tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Jeremy, each week we take a question from our audience. This week's question comes from Mariachi Goldfinger. Where they come up with these, I don't know. And it's an important question, and it's a question that I think everybody needs to think about at least once in their life. So what is the most valuable thing that you've ever given away? Jeremy, you're our guest. You came up here. You brought me some Gazzo's cheesesteaks. So I have to go to you first.
I'd have to say the biggest thing that I've given away would be my self-worth. And I say that because for a big portion of my life, I'd even actually say till this day, I struggle with self-worth. I look in the mirror and I don't think I'm worthy. Everybody tells me I have, all this potential in the world, and everybody around me loves me, but the person that doesn't love me and I feel it the most is myself. And I can't, I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of work on myself. So I take it very seriously, but I don't have an answer to this day yet for that question. Why is it that, I lack self-worth? But I know through all the hard work, all the therapy I've done, and that's where it comes from. That's the root of it.
So there's a worship song. It's a Christian song. It's called Echo. Originally sung by Elevation Worship. The worship leader at my church, Kim Frias, she sings a version of it on YouTube. And one of the lines in there, and it's one of my favorite songs in the world, it's just like an infectious song. It's something that just sticks in your head. It says, "When my mind says that I'm not good enough, God, you're good enough for me." All right. So when you say stuff like that, I think when you step in front of a camera, and I know you do it with Culture Collab, there's a portion of us that thinks that we are imposters. Like we're out there, we're talking to people, and we're trying to be engaging to people. And a lot of that is hiding what we have deep inside. Okay, me included. Okay, I'm not immune to this whatsoever. People will see me up on stage or on camera or on a show or something. I don't have it all together. I don't even have it close all together. But the minute that I was able to admit that I don't have it all together was the day that imposter syndrome seemed palatable to me. Giving, it comes in many different forms. Giving you can give a gift to somebody. We have, we're recording this right before Christmas. You're going to give your kids gifts. You're going to give your wife gifts. You're going to give your friends gifts, whatever it may be. What happens with those gifts? You give them to them. If it's something they don't want, they throw it in a pile, they re-gift it, they do, and it means nothing. So in order to give a proper gift, a valuable gift, it has to be something that you hold dear. Okay, it has to be something that is almost irreplaceable to you. That's when gifts become genuine. So for me, the most valuable thing that I've ever given anybody is my time. And that might seem very egotistical in order to say that, but it's the one thing in my life that they're not making any more of. Okay, there is no resetting the clock. You cannot turn it back. That clock is ticking every single day. There is no more time. So when I give somebody my time, they have to know that that's something that is so valuable to me because I don't have a lot of it. I'm in the back nine of my life. I don't have, I'm lucky if I have 20 or 30 years left. And I know this. So for me to give somebody my time, and if somebody is irresponsible with the time that I give them, those are the people that I sort of just look at and go, yeah, you know what, I just wasted that time. And I don't ever want to waste a gift on somebody. So the most valuable thing that I've given away is my time because there's just not enough of it.
Yeah.
So Mariachi Goldfinger, thank you for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions and we will try to get them on the air. Now, don't forget, go get yourself some Den Today's coffee. There'll be a commercial running later in the episode. Go to thesufferingpodcast.com. You can pick up a bag. It's a wonderful cup of coffee. So Jeremy Campbell, I'm trying to think about how we got connected and I'm drawing a blank of how we got connected. I think you might have messaged me.
So, yep. I reached out to you on Instagram and I had came across a live feed that you had done that morning and it just grabbed me. And I remember I reached out to you. I wrote you a real heartfelt message saying, how your message grabbed me. And I told you what I was trying to do with the youth, how I was trying to empower them and be a positive mentor. And I asked if you, wanted to do a collab with me, and you, without hesitation, said absolutely. We set it up, we did it, and it was a great success. I loved hearing your story. Tonight, I guess you're going to hear a bit more of mine. So,
well,
it's tables.
The older I get, the more of a gut feeling I go on. And there's been several times where people have reached out to me and say, "Hey, would you like?" I'm like, and I try not to be rude, but I really don't want to do it. I'm like, get back to me. Get back to me. And 9 times out of 10, they don't get back to you. But there's been a couple times. You're one of them. The other one is Eric Perluke, the Loomis Show, where they just reached out to me and something in my gut says, all right, let's do this. Maybe it was a Philly thing because Eric's in Pennsylvania, but he's a Yankees fan for whatever reason. He's in Pennsylvania. I know it's like kicking God in the balls or something. It's just not right. So Jeremy, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you grew up?
I grew up outside of the Philadelphia area. Great family life. I had a very loving mother and father, a very hardworking father. My mom was like the typical stay-at-home mom. I mean, she did everything for our household, everything. As far all the way to the at-home therapy session. She was that person that you'd be able to lean your head on and be comfortable talking to. She was just that person.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a brother, an older brother. He lives in New York, and I have a younger brother. He lives in Delaware.
She's got 3 boys at home. She's outgunned, outmanned, figuratively and literally, and so taking care of the household, feeding 3 boys isn't easy. Clothing 3 boys isn't easy. All these different hardships while your dad's out working. And a stay-at-home mom, everybody thinks, oh, well, you're not working and stuff. And Bill Burr has a great bit on this where he's kind of ragging on women who stay home, saying it's the most important job in the world. And he goes, try doing roofing as a redhead in the summer. Stuff like, it's not dangerous if you could do it in your pajamas. That was the gist of it. But staying home with kids, and we've both done it. I'm sure you've stayed home alone when they're babies. You're like, you want to tear your hair out. And these women they do it way better than us.
Day in and day out. Yeah, they do.
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
I was a stay-at-home dad for a short period of my daughter's life. For the first year of her life, I was going to school, so I took the stay-at-home role. And their mother at the time wanted to go back to work, so she went back to work. I was begging to go back to work. I was like, please let me go back. It's not an easy thing being a parent.
You're tethered to those kids 24/7. If you're a good parent,
Sure.
you know, obviously there's enough bad ones out there, but you're tethered to those kids all day long. And, you know, are they happy? Are they healthy? Are they screaming? Are they into something they are not supposed to? You know, that was the thing with my wife. My wife was a stay-at-home mom for a while, and I gave her the option because I know a lot of women don't want to stay at home. And I said, listen, if you want to go back to work, we'll make it work, all right? But we also got to know that your salary's probably going to be going to daycare, for having somebody else raise your kids. But if you want to stay home, you want to raise these kids, I will make that work too. And that's what she chose. That's what I wanted her to choose, but I didn't make the decision for her. So I went out and got 2 jobs because that's what we're supposed to do. You know,
Roll the sleeves up.
Yeah,
roll the sleeves up.
Just get to work. So growing up, play a lot of sports?
Played every sport under the sun. I mean, sports was a big part of my childhood. Sports is a big part of my story in general in life. It's like my biggest passion. I love sports. I love watching sports. I love reading about sports. I love playing sports.
Do you ever go down these weird sports rabbit holes on YouTube or something? I do it all the time.
Oh yeah, and you're like, how did I even get here by the end of it? You're like,
I'm on this weird
Watching squash.
Larry Bird rabbit hole on YouTube. Like I'm just clips and videos and stuff. And I was a big I did love Larry Bird, except when Dr. J grabbed him around the throat and he got into a fight with Dr. J, which I was watching that game. But I go down these weird sports rabbit holes. You know, I'll go down like the whiz kids of the 50s for the Phillies because obviously Phillies are close to my heart. And, you know, there's some really interesting stories in sports in general from the past that I don't even know how old you are.
33.
You're 33.
Or 92.
So, oh, God, I graduated high school. But, you know, there's a whole bunch of history with sports. Pick a sport that you can go back and watch forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then there's the moments you get to experience.
Yeah. And I think sports is such an important part of, you know, if a child chooses that they, you know, want to play sports, I think it can give them so much in life. It can give them, you know, structure. It can teach them hard work, teach them all resilience.
It's way more than just sports. It's way more than just athletics.
Way more than playing around with a ball. I tell people that all the time. It's a life lesson.
It's learning how to lose, learning how to win, learning how to play with another if you're in a team sport, learning how to be coached, to be coachable. The best line I ever heard was an uncoachable kid becomes an unemployable adult. And if you've ever, I know you're a coach and I've coached, and there is never a truer statement than that.
No, you get a whole mix of kids. You get kids that are, you know, oh, coach. And you get kids that are just, they're looking for you to not be looking at them. You know what I mean? And you wonder, are you just out there to, make mom and dad happy? What is it? What is it? But a not coachable kid is difficult. I mean, I think that every kid is a puzzle. I think that if they're not coachable, why are they not coachable? So it's deeper than just writing them off as, oh, you're not coachable. I think every person can be coachable. It's a give and take on both sides. And it starts with the other side.
You kind of have to just figure out each kid, because each kid, you have to sort of meet them where they're at. 9 times out of 10, the most uncoachable kids are the ones with the most talent.
They think they know it all.
They think they know it all. They come in there, and it's a very, very difficult thing to overcome. But if you can figure that out, like I talk about 2 kids in my coaching career, and neither one of them are my own. One kid was ultra talented, very hard to coach, wouldn't listen, very emotional, just a good athlete though. And I would tell him, I'm like, if I played against you, I'd have you in 5 minutes, man. I'd get in your head, I'd get you off your game, and that's what I would do. And the other kid was just a bad kid. I got him in 3rd grade. He was a bad kid. 4th grade, I figured him out. I always say I've never laid a hand on my kids. This kid, I wanted to punch him in the face. I didn't. I wanted to punch him right in the face. But by 4th grade, I figured him out, and he became, and I coached him all the way through 7th grade. He became one of my greatest assets. And he wasn't big. He wasn't ultra talented. I just figured him out. I figured out what he needed.
And that's a kid that you'll never forget when you look back and think about all the years you coached. That kid will always stand out to you. Well, you know what I'm saying? Because that was an ultimate success for you. Kid that you took from being, I'm sorry, but a kid that you took from being uncoachable, transformed him a year later, and then got the best out of him for the next, I don't know how you said, 2-3 years?
I had him for 5 years, 4 years. So, and by the time he was done, now he was not a big kid. He was tough though. And he had a big mouth, and if you're going to have a big mouth, you better be tough. He was just a small kid. I used to take my lineman out and put him in. I'd be like, just hold the line. That's all you got to do is hold the line. And he would do it all the time. And he would do it. And to this day, he's 16 years old. He's still a bad kid, because I get the reports from the school resource officers. He's still a bad kid, but no matter where I am, he will come up and he'll say, because he gives me the greatest compliment in the world. He says, "Hey, coach, how you doing?" He'll find me in the bleachers. "Hey, coach, how you doing?"
That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
So everywhere I'll be in the grocery store where the area I coach in is the area. My son also plays in that area, so everybody he knows is everybody I coach is in that area. Same exact way. When a kid runs up to you, "Hey, coach," they tell you about, oh, I guess I got, an A on my test, whatever. That's like the greatest thing, because it's like you see their parents looking over there like, oh my God, he actually told you that? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
there's an interview with Reggie Miller is interviewing Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas. And Reggie Miller to this day calls Isaiah Thomas coach, and he calls Larry Bird coach. They both coached him on the Pacers. And he tells this story where he sees both of them and he calls him coach, and somebody comes up and says, why do you call him coach? And he goes, because they earned that respect from me.
I was going to say respect.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Absolutely.
So growing up, playing sports like you did you have, I think we learn more from our bad coaches than we do from our good ones. Let's start out. What's a bad coach that you had? Somebody who said, "Nah, this isn't the way to do it."
Yes, a bad coach to me is what I call like the sit on the bucket coach, and I still see it to this day. You got guys out there that sit on the bucket. They bark orders. There's no, every time I get my team together, I shake everyone's hand. I ask everyone how their day was at school because I genuinely care. That there's far and few between that. Okay. And there's other coaches that do that, and I respect the hell out of them, but it's far and few between. There's a lot of coaches that I call sit on the bucket. They sit on the bucket. They talk with their other coaches. They say, okay, huddle up. They get everybody in a line. They hit grounders to third. They got 12 guys standing in line waiting. There's no productivity to that. You know what I mean? There's no even connection to that. Where was the, hey, how was your day? Before you start barking at them, well, what if they had a terrible day? Then, if you actually ask them that, you might approach it differently. So that would be a bad coach to me.
There's a lot of people in life that are sit on the bucket people.
Yeah. Yes. There is.
You know, I used to have coaches that hit me over the head with whistles and cold nights on your helmet. Oof. Ring
That
your
would probably be illegal now, but
very illegal. Very illegal. No, they used to hit us. They used to do all
man.
sorts of crazy stuff.
I got some stories.
But then I also had some other coaches that, and to me, the mark of a good coach is the person that I want to perform for because I want to make them proud. Not because they're asking for it, because I want to make them proud.
Yep.
And again, translating it into a life lesson, there are bosses that I work for that were bucket sitters. And then there are other bosses that I work for where I wanted to do a good job and do my best job because they were good bosses, they supported me, and I want to make them look good by my performance.
Yep.
So there's your life lesson in sports right there. So you had your bad coaches, right? And the bucket sitters, because I love that term. I'm going to give you credit for it once, but I may actually steal it because it is a very powerful term because it captures the people not only in sports but also in life that'll sit there from the sidelines and bark orders and not really willing to engage anybody, not willing to connect with anybody. But then there's your good coaches. If you had to pick out as a youth, you personally, Jeremy Campbell, as a youth, what was one characteristic of a good coach that really just empowered you?
So that would be my high school basketball coach. He was also the athletic director for our school. But I'm going to build it off of what I just said, kind of with the negatives. He actually cared. I mean, his office was a safe haven for students. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how many times I went there just because I was having a bad day, just to sit there quietly and him eventually look over and be like, what's bothering you? Let's talk about it. You know how important that is in life?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Forget sports, forget any of that. You know how important that is to, just be sitting next to somebody and notice something's not right. They're upset in some type of way and just, look over at them and say, hey, you want to talk at all? That there's not enough of that in this world. And that's something I've known about myself since I was young, is I have a heart like that. Like everybody I talk to, I ask, oh, how was your day? How was your week? I try to keep in contact with people because I genuinely care.
The battles we fight are hard and taxing on the soul. Fighting a battle that seems impossible to win. The stressful calls that give us wounds that cannot be seen.
These moments leave scars. They leave dents. Sometimes we just need to sit and talk over coffee.
Finding a moment of peace in the comfort of decompression with those whom you share difficulties. Sharing moments with those who are the only ones who understand. Our peace comes in the quiet moments we can share with our brothers and sisters.
It's just a moment to sit, listen, and let it out. We may be dented, but we are not broken. The Suffering Podcast. Dented Ace Coffee was created to bring the peace to the protectors. Dented Ace Coffee is a tribute to my brother Mike Felice and all the others who couldn't find their peace. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Dented Development Project so that we can begin to repair the dents caused by suffering in veterans, first responders, and their families. The Suffering Podcast's Dented Ace Coffee. Get yours today by visiting thesufferingpodcast.com.
Body language tells us everything about a kid or an adult. And if you're not reading body language, you're not paying attention.
Exactly.
Especially as a
They don't
coach.
pay attention.
Especially as a coach. Now, getting back to your previous one with the bad coaches, the bucket sitters, how are you going to be able to read somebody's body language sitting on the sidelines?
Looking at the clipboard.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
But when you're engaged and you look in a kid's eyes, and listen, there's challenges with coaching kids that I never saw as a player until I became a coach. Like I had a kid this year call another kid the N-word who was black. I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this? Those are the little challenges because as a coach, you have to be not only good and proficient at what you're trying to coach, but you also have to be a therapist. You have to be a social worker. You have to be a dad.
Yep.
Because some of these kids, they don't have that at home. and it's an enormous responsibility. You don't see that as a player, and I'm sure you didn't see it. How did you see your coaches as coming up through the ranks?
Basically, good or bad. Exactly how you said him. Oh, this is an annoying coach. This is he's an ass. Oh, sorry. Excuse my language.
You could say whatever you want here.
Okay, cool.
We're within the first 3 minutes. YouTube don't give a shit.
Basically that, and the ones that stood out and the ones that actually made an impact were the good ones. You know what I mean? The ones that you could actually tell cared. And that was just the difference. And you said it earlier about when you had a good boss, right? It actually made you want to work harder. Same with, I agree to that 100% with work, with sports. When I was an athlete, right? If my coach was barking at me and being an ass for no reason, and trust me, I had plenty of them, I didn't want to perform. I didn't want to do what he said. There's a way to talk to kids, and there's a way to, just people in general, there's a way to talk to people in general. And with anyone, if you're going to be stern and rude or whatever about your Tony, you're most likely you're not going to get the whole message across. Do you know that as a human being? If somebody starts barking at you and stuff like that, you're going to hear everything they say? No, probably not. You're going to start getting pissed off, and you're going to start, and that's kids, they don't know how to handle their emotions, so they tune you out. You can just see it in their face.
So there's a couple different types of coaches. There's those coaches that will be very soft-spoken, sort of do what I say, that type of thing. And then there's the ones that are vibrant, loud, and yell. And some people come into coaching. You see this with all the young coaches, and they'll come in and they'll think they got to be that hard-nosed coach, and they'll just scream and yell. And they're missing the very big lesson about being stern with people, with kids in general. You cannot yell at a kid unless that kid knows you love them. And that takes time to build. Because otherwise,
I agree with that 100%.
You're just being mean.
Nope. Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
I lost my shit on the kids once a month. I mean, I lost my shit, but it was very cool, calculated, and timed perfectly because, especially with a 4-month football season, about once every month, they'll snap into formation, and then you'll see them start getting a little lax. So I have to give them a common enemy. So I'll go in there and I will lose my shit on them. And my son, my oldest son, who coached with me my last year coaching, I go, watch this. And I go over there and I just rip into the kids. Nothing cruel, nothing, just raise my voice.
Yeah.
And then I walked off and I go, how was that? Now, what had happened is the next practice, guess what? They all gelled together. They all knew that what they weren't doing was right. But I had to do that. But each one of those kids knew that I cared deeply for them. And that's the only way I could get away with it. I'd been coaching the kids for, 5 years at that point. Yep. So now what happened with sports in your career? Did it get sidelined? Did you go further?
I wasn't good enough to go professional in anything, but I also had CMT. I still do.
What's CMT?
Charcot-Marie-Tooth. It's a neurological disorder, and I've had to have multiple surgeries for it and whatnot. And after my last surgery, they told me I would never be able to play competitively again. I'd never be able to run. Really.
So what's it do? Does it
makes it hard for like muscle growth? So it's because it's a neurological disease. It's throughout my whole body. Now I'm only really affected in my legs, but I'm affected pretty severely, and it's progressive. So it's only going to get worse. As middle school and high school, I was fine for the most part. Towards the end of high school, college is when I had to get more surgeries and stuff like that. And then, I couldn't go further with my sports career, I would say.
When you finally had to end your sports career, all that build up that the coaches put into you, all that empowerment that they gave you, the good ones anyway, what was the day like where you couldn't do it no more?
That was a very difficult time in my life that I'm not super familiar with, only because I put it in a lockbox and locked it away for many, many, many years. And then it festered in my early 20s and turned to a lot of issues, addiction,
what was
depression, painkillers. I was at the age of 17, they had me on Perc 30s, Percocet 30s in high school. You know what I mean?
You want to hear something crazy? When they first developed Percocet, they said only 1% of the population is going to get addicted to it.
Yeah. That guy ought to get a lawsuit.
Yeah, well, that's pharmaceuticals, man. They rip you out. But that putting you on at 17,
such a young, naive mind, impressionable mind.
Doctor tells you take these,
and guess what I did?
You
3 times a day.
Yeah,
and I fell victim to him for sure. I struggled into my early 20s with addiction, and then a couple things happened at once. I had gotten the rarest types of Lyme's disease that you can get, Lyme's carditis. Attacked my heart. I had to have emergency heart surgery. I had to have a pacemaker put in.
You got a pacemaker put in?
I had it removed.
Okay.
3 years later, but when I was officially cleared and whatnot.
Don't put the microwave on, Drew. See you convulsing over there.
So a couple things happened at once, and it felt like my world was imploding. I definitely went through post-traumatic stress from the heart situation, and that's a crazy story.
Well, there's a certain amount of people that go through heavy-duty medical problems, and then they become almost agoraphobic. I've seen it several times.
Agoraphobic, what is that?
Afraid to even go outside.
Really? Oh, well, I'm not that, but
they're scared of everything. I know a guy who had a stroke. I'm not kidding you. I know 2 people that had this happen. Had a stroke, and it was right during lockdown, during COVID. He wouldn't allow his daughters to come over and see him. I said, I'd rather die than not see my kids.
Yeah. I had a lot of things manifest from that. So I died. You know what I mean? I flatlined over 20. They had to shock me back to life over 20 times because they didn't know I had Lyme's at the time, right? So they rushed me into emergency heart surgery. They put the pacemaker in. I come out of surgery. And mind you, I'm in upstate New York with a girlfriend and her family at the time. My family's 6 hours away. So they get a call at 1 a.m. in the morning saying, you need to get up to New York State Hospital. Your son's going in emergency heart surgery. So I go into emergency heart surgery. I come out, and they actually are there, but it was a long surgery. They were there by that time. So I get wheeled to my room. I see my dad and my mom. And I remember I had to pee. And I was real stubborn when I was young. There was this weird jug. They were like, here, just lay down in the bed and pee. And I was like, how can you lay down and pee? Like, I'm arguing with them. I'm still groggy. I said, the bathroom's right there. I'm going to go to the bathroom. So I swing my feet over the bed and stand up. Well, the surgeon didn't have the bottom lead to my pacemaker in my heart. He actually just had it in a crack, in a crevice, they call it. So it slipped right out. Well, I fell back instantly on the bed, flatlined. At that point, they couldn't do the paddles with me anymore because I had an open gash like this big. So I was on these electronical patches that actually knew I had flatlined, so they shocked me, right? So I'm half on the bed, half off the bed when I first get my first shock, right? Trying to flip me onto the bed. I get shocked, back up. I come back up. I see my dad, and I look over at the screen, and I'm seeing my heartbeats going down, down, down. It was around like maybe 60, 40 that I'd get real dizzy. And then boop, beep, and I'd hear the beep. I'd go into the same dream over and over again. Every single time I flatlined, I went into the same dream, which caused a lot of trauma for me at the time because my biggest fear at the time was being alone. I was very codependent at that point in my life. And it was me by myself. It was me by myself in this field running, which I can't run, right? So I was running, throwing a football up and down to myself, just heading towards this white light. And every time I'd get to the white light, I'd snap right back in and be shocked back up. And I'd pass out again, go into the same dream, me running in a field towards this white light. And that messed me up for years because I was like, oh my God, was that like the afterlife, that white light, and I was going to be by myself? You know what I mean? I didn't know. So I had all these questions. My faith came into jeopardy. I was like, yeah, I didn't even know how to process it really.
Well, look at
And
where
it took a lot of therapy.
look at where you were. You know, you were in a place you're running. You can't run. You got a football in your hand. You're running towards. Was there, when you were in that dream, was there any fear?
No.
Right.
And through analyzing it over all these years and going back and reliving it and going back and reliving it, I stopped fearing it and started finding comfortability. Like, man, I acknowledged it. I didn't even realize that at first. You know what I'm saying? I was so traumatized by the situation. It took years later that I was like, man, I was running in that dream. And somebody said to me, they're like, you were running. And I was like, yeah, I was running. They're like, you can't run. And I was like, holy shit, was that a sign that like, that was freedom? Like,
you got a sneak peek into the afterlife, which very few people get the opportunity to see and come back and talk about it. And the fact that you remember it, oof. Yeah.
Yeah, I get goosebumps thinking about it because it happened over 20 times in the hospital. But the first flatline, I would have died in my sleep that night if it wasn't for my girlfriend at the time, my ex-girlfriend at the time, and her father, right? So we go to bed. I wake up, she's smacking me, hitting me in the chest. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's going on? She's like, you're just choking, staring at the ceiling. I said, I was dreaming. That's when the first dream happened, of the same dream. And I was like, I was dreaming. What are you talking about? She's like, no, you were just staring at the ceiling, choking. You're white as a ghost. And I'm like, I feel fine. Let's go back to sleep. So we go back to sleep. Her father, I wake up again. Her father's pounding me in my chest. Dude, we got to get you to the hospital. You're just staring at the ceiling, choking. I'm like, I'm having the same dream, guy. Like, I don't know what's going on with you guys, but I'm sleeping. Then I felt it. My feet started getting hot. It started shooting up my body. That was the first time I felt like I knew when it was going to happen. It started like coming up from my feet and just tunnel visioned it. And then I went into the dream. Every time it was like an inferno, but then it just tunneled into a dream. And if I was by myself that night, I would have died in my sleep. It was them waking me up, hitting me. That actually they weren't giving me actual textbook chest compressions, but they were giving me little compressions.
Sounds like they were giving you a precardial thump, is what they call
it. Yeah.
Right?
Boom.
Yeah. And if you are a medical professional, you're not allowed to do a precardial thump, but a citizen's allowed to. An untrained professional is. Precardial thumps work. I've seen them work.
They didn't know what that was. Yeah. I'll tell you that. They were just punching me to try to get me up.
Well, yeah, all you're doing is restarting the heart. When you came out of that stuff, you're on the mend, and was there any appreciation that you had for life? Were you still in addiction at this point?
Yeah.
All right, so you're still in addiction. Did it change any perspective in your life? I mean, you died.
Not at that moment, no. Which, you hear these people that, have life changing moments like that where it just puts things in perspective and stuff. It did years later, but I was so wrapped up in my addiction. To be honest, I was still lost at that time.
What was the move to get sober?
My son.
So
when I had my son, I went to rehab.
Were you still with it? You have it with your ex-girlfriend, your son?
That was a girlfriend from high school.
Okay.
The kids, the mother of my children now, I had met after all this, and she told me she was pregnant, and I remember when she told me, I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, my life went in front of me like a book, and I was like, I can't bring a kid into this story. I can't bring a kid into this story. And her and her mom are celebrating, and oh my God, we're gonna have a kid. And I'm like, he's gonna come into a complete tornado. I had wanted to get clean for probably 2 years at that point and just failed. You know what I mean? And I was like, I thought, when they say it's a lifetime worth of work, you know what I mean? Never stops. Well, that's a real thing. It's an everyday choice, and it's a battle every day.
I always tell new parents that You are as clean, clear as you will ever be the moment you lay your eyes on your child.
Mm.
Because if you can't do it for your child, the hope is waning.
Mm.
Because that child is, now you want to talk about responsibility, your responsibility for that child and the type of person that you are, it never goes away. It never stops.
Nope.
It's so that is, if you're not motivated to change your life from kids, I'd have to say you're going to have a hard time changing your life.
And you know how many people don't change their lives when they have kids? And guess what? It creates, and this is, oof, this is a tough subject for me. So I got to take this slow. But if you drop the ball, right, and don't actually make a change for your kids and keep going down the path that you were, going, if your life was messed up bringing in kids, it only creates a generational impact on them. Well, now your issues are going to become their issues. And my biggest thing when I became a father was I don't ever want my child to feel the way I feel. That's it. Like, he's going to make mistakes. He probably may make, and so my daughter, she'll probably make mistakes, maybe even some of the same mistakes I've made, right? But my biggest thing was I never wanted them to feel the way I felt inside, because I was loved so much by the world. You know what I mean? And like, I've always been that way because I'm just a very sociable person. I'm easy to talk to. People open up to me because I genuinely care. But I do all that for other people and nothing for myself.
They make
nothing for myself.
People who are socially popular, they make the most successful addicts.
Yeah.
There's a group of people. Not every addict you see is like in Kensington, where it's The Walking Dead.
Sure.
Most addicts, where they sit, they're usually successful. They're usually very social, very likable, whether it's alcohol or drugs, it doesn't matter. And the reason is people, if they know they got a drug problem or an alcohol problem, they'll overlook it. They're like, well, he's fine. He's such a nice guy. He's very social. He's very popular. So they just say, you know what? So he parties a little bit on the weekend. It's not a big deal, until that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And one day, all you're doing is you're driving your car along that Pacific Coast Highway, along the big ledge right there, waiting for you just to one day fall over.
I've always said I'm the preacher that doesn't practice, right? I can preach it. I wish I could feel it. You know what I mean? I tell my kids about the importance of loving yourself and loving your craft and working hard and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I can't love myself. Why can't I love myself?
I think if you see, I'm a big person. I believe you speak it into existence. Okay.
Man, yeah.
If you have a dream or something you want to attain, sometimes, a lot of times, the majority of the human race won't tell you what their dreams are, because they feel like they're going to be made fun of. If they don't attain their dreams, then you're going to think of them as a failure. Me, and this happened later in life. Now I will manifest it through talking about it. Just to give you an example of how this works, 2024. I was telling somebody about all the places I had to travel, and I said, and I didn't do it to lie to him. I don't know why I said it. I said, and I'm going to LA, and I'm going to Arizona, and I wasn't going to LA. I swear to God, I wasn't going to LA. Not more than a month later, I get the call for the Jubilee video out in LA.
The 20 cops.
The 20 cops.
Nice.
I spoke that one into existence. I'll never, and you can do that with your life, and that's empowering. But so
the law of attraction.
We're here to talk about empowerment. The person that you have to empower first is yourself.
Yeah.
So when I speak stuff into existence, I am empowering myself to work towards a goal. And listen, if I don't attain that goal, that means I have to work harder.
That's it.
That's it. So I'm not afraid to tell people what I want to do. But because I put it out there now, I'm responsible for it.
This is true.
You lay it out there on the line, and I encourage people to do that all the time. Tell people what you want to do. Go do it.
Yes, it kind of holds your hand to the fire in that sense.
So you get clean, you get sober, you go to rehab, which rehab we could do an entire show on because rehab's a whole different mess in itself.
Mm.
So you get clean and sober, you go home to your new family,
Mm-hmm.
and you see this kid. Now you are responsible. When he finally is born, you're
Yep.
looking at him in the hospital, and now you have the hardest job. You have the most responsibility. You can no longer be a kid. And now there's two types of men. And I'm going to say this just to men. There's men who look at their kids as a hindrance. They're like, oh, now I'm not going to be able to go out drinking with the guys. I'm not going to go play golf. I'm not going to be able to go here. And then there's the other population of men going, time to get to fucking work.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming you were the latter.
Definitely. I mean, I provided for our family for the first 4 years by myself. So she was a stay-at-home mom. I was selling cars at the time. Yeah, I mean, I was the captain of the ship, but I wouldn't have a ship if it wasn't for her too. You know what I mean? I can't emphasize the importance of that role, the mother role. There was so much stuff she did that I couldn't do. And I'm sure she would say the same thing about me. I'm sure there was so much stuff I could do that she couldn't do. And I think that that's partnership. You know what I mean? We ultimately broke up, and that kind of threw a loop in the progress. I ended up going back to rehab, not for drugs, but due to my mental health, I was in a severe depression. And yeah, I mean, like I kind of started off saying today, I'm still a work in progress. I'm not trying to be this hero or this trophy guy or like, oh my God, he's perfect. Cause I don't think there's a such thing. You know what I mean? I think that life is an ongoing game. You know what I mean? It's all about how can I get to the next level? How can I level up? And sometimes, guess what? You plateau for a while. Sometimes you might even go backwards for a second. But as long as in the long run, you just keep moving forward, I think that that's the name of the game.
Well, that's what a hero is. A hero is somebody who takes the hits, takes the suffering, takes the pain, and keeps somehow moving forward. Even if the wind is blowing them back a hair. You take any hero from any piece of literature, movie, whatever it is, they all have their pain. They all have their suffering. What makes them different is they don't stop. That doesn't stop them. Well, every blockade you have in life tries to get you to stop. That's its job, right? A real hero pushes through that blockade. So just because you have a moment where you have to go for some mental help, that doesn't keep you moving forward. That gives you the power to move forward. You know, without that, who knows?
We all have a good and a bad voice. You know what I mean? We all do negative self-talk, and some of us do less of it than others, but I try to now in, my older days, I try to acknowledge that voice and say, hey, yeah, because I have that voice. I beat myself up all the time. I try to say, hey, I think you're being a little hard on yourself, because if that was the truth, if you were so weak, well, why are you still here?
So
you know what I mean?
This is what makes you a person that I respect, especially when it comes to looking at working with little kids. And I've seen your stuff, the fast feet, right? I've seen the stuff you do with kids. It's all these different lessons that you've learned throughout your life, through your addiction, through your mental health, through taking sometimes you take 2 steps forward and you take 2 steps back, but you still keep moving forward. All these little lessons are what make you a valuable coach. If you were the most athletic person in the world and you could run until you're 28 and you went on to the next level to play, well, I don't think you'd have as much to teach the kids about, especially what the life lessons are.
Resilience.
You have those life lessons to pass on to the kids. So my question to you is, what got you into, as your children matriculated and became, what drew you into trying to bring some of your life lessons into coaching them?
That didn't start my coaching career. My son came to me and said, Dad, will you coach me in baseball? And baseball was like one of the sports I didn't play. But I was like, sure. I love to learn the game, and I like watching it on TV. I follow the Phils.
You know enough to
Sure.
coach young kids. Yeah.
Sure. So he asked me to coach, and I said, sure. So one of my friends was coaching, and his son was friends with my son. So we started coaching together. And I'm not going to lie, that's what changed my life. That gave me a lot of purpose. I feel like when I go to coach, I feel like I'm going to church. I'm not going to lie. You know that feeling when you're going into church? Like,
Sure.
oh my God. Like,
Yep.
Thank God you're here. I feel that when I walk in to work with kids. I've always liked working with kids. So my internship in high school, I went back and worked with my elementary school gym teacher and did that for 2 months. And I was like, man, I really like working with kids. So I knew I always liked working with kids, but when he asked me to coach and I started coaching, it was just such a learning curve. Okay. I wasn't the most patient person at the time. Okay. I wasn't the most understanding person at the time. I was more selfish. I'm not going to lie. When I started, that coaching helped me change all that. Like it really did. It made me become more selfless. It made me, for an example, right? I could sit there and go, whoa, woe's me, sing, say, this sad story and all this, but how many times are you gonna listen to that record? You get what I'm saying? Like, I have kids. I've worked with Challenger leagues, right? So Challenger leagues are kids with special needs.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I have kids in wheelchairs, tubes come in. I'm blessed. That is what put life in perspective for me. When I really got out of my selfish way, and I started focusing on other people. I started focusing on kids. Simple as sports, right? Just let's teach this kid how to hit a ball. Well, guess what I was thinking about when I was teaching this kid how to hit a ball? That's what I was thinking about. Not all these problems in the world, not all my problems, not playing that same record of that sad song. I got to focus on the kid hitting a ball. And I gave my pure attention, right? I was like, wow, this is like therapy for me. It's like a step away. Well, it just went on like that. And I think, obviously, I've had a lot of surgeries. I'm not in the best physical condition anymore. I have a lot of leg issues still. I'm out there on my knees, giving them, you know what I mean? Giving them slow rollers. I'm out there teaching them how to do hurdles. You know what I mean?
There's one major and one minor beauty of coaching. No matter what sport, pick a sport. The major beauty of a coaching experience is you take a kid, and the first time that they get it, doesn't happen with every kid, but it happens with a lot of them. It happens with enough of them to refuel your tank in order to keep you going. But when they get it, whatever it is, whether it's hitting a ball, something as simple as hitting a ball,
Yep.
and they hit it, and you look at their face, and they're like, whoa,
Yep.
I did it. And that is a wonderful experience. That's why I like coaching younger kids, because by the time they get in high school, some of them are little shitheads. And the second one is standing next to the kids, watching them with pride as the national anthem is played with their helmets or their hats or their hand over their heart. That is about as much, that'll tell you whether you deserve to be a coach or whether you don't deserve to be a coach, because there is a certain feeling to that.
I get goosebumps with that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, not everybody, I always push for the national anthem. Oh, if I'm coaching, we got to play, unless for some reason the league's like, oh, we're not doing that or something like that. And they do that. Not our league, but there are other leagues. It could be as simple as them not having a loudspeaker system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But not every league does it. I always push for the national anthem. When I'm standing out there with my hand on the heart, looking at the flag.
One of the more beautiful things I ever
Goosebumps.
saw was a high school basketball game. My son was playing on the team. High school basketball team, the PA system screwed up. They couldn't play the national anthem. The student section sang the national anthem.
OMG. That's got to be amazing.
It brought tears to my eyes, because I'm like,
yeah,
that is a beautiful thing.
What a patriotic moment.
They picked up the yoke when it just, it's not that they want to, the PA system broke or whatever it was. And they sang the national anthem, and it wasn't the best version of the national anthem I ever heard, but it was definitely one of the most touching.
That's awesome.
So, you as a coach, what are some things that you've learned along the way? Because you've learned some things not to do, But what do you think is one of the more valuable things that you teach your athletes?
You know, I just learned this one over this summer, so I'm not an expert in it yet, and I wish I would have done this more. But I was speaking with Bill Ripken. You ever heard of
Billy
Cal
Ripken?
Ripken?
Yeah, he had the baseball card with the bat. Yeah, it says "Eat me."
Yeah, I think that's what it says, right?
It says "Eat me." Yeah. And they printed a lot of. I have one of those somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was down at a all Ripken event in Myrtle Beach with my son this summer and our family, and I didn't know if I would get this question in with him. You know, he had a lot of people trying to get him to sign stuff. So I quickly I waited for him to sign everything for all the kids. And I said, "Hey, Bill, can I ask you one question for the youth?" And I asked him if he could, go back and ask and give him his 10-year-old self one piece of advice. What would it be and why? And yeah, I really wish I would have heard this when I was 10. But he said, work hard, right? And he said, and the reason he said is because he said, because I could have worked harder. He had all the potential in the world. And don't get me wrong. What I told him off camera, I said, dude, you made it to the MLB. You were in the MLB for 10 years. Okay. Everybody, if you drop your name, probably knows it. You did good. He said, but I could have done better. My brother was in the Hall of Fame. So, that was eating him up. Well, he gave me a great answer. I mean, he goes into detail on how he could have worked harder and what that would have meant for his career. You know what I mean? And I think that
let's leave an untapped potential on the table. That's a bad thing.
Well, that leads to regret, right?
Yeah.
Regret's one of them links on that ball and chain that are hard to cut. You could sense in his answer, it was such an authentic, raw answer that I actually could sense like he had some regret to it. And I think he would say that for sure. But work hard, right? So, yeah, it's something I wish I would have done. You know, maybe if I would have worked hard, I would have got back out on the course. Maybe why just because one doctor said I wasn't going to run again? Why was that the story I ran with? You know what I'm saying?
I say about my football career all the time. I could have done something. But I wasn't. I was getting tired. I was getting lazy.
Yeah.
I did not give it my all at the end of my football career.
Basketball was my best sport. When they told me I wasn't going to be able to play competitively again, I checked out completely. I mean, there's no other explanation I could tell you about it. I started partying, all this kind of stuff.
But now you have a responsibility to these kids to not hit that wall and stop.
Correct.
Figure out a way around it.
Correct. Because I remember being a kid, right? Oh, you break up with a girlfriend. Oh, you think the world's over. Well, I'm having the same 12-year-old kids going through the same stuff. I broke up with my girlfriend. He's telling me this. I'm like, dude, you know how many fish are in the sea, man? That's one of many you're going to have over your next life. Like, that wasn't going to be your wife. You get what I'm saying? Like, move on. Let's keep it.
Lean on your buddies.
Exactly.
Like what we used to tell kids.
Don't even worry about the girls.
And this is not politically correct, but one of the things we used to tell our friends at that age is, look, bros before hoes, man. Come on.
Yeah, that was my error too. That was a big thing in my error.
Well, thank you, YouTube. It's been fun, but I know you're going to take me down on that one. But that's what we used to say, and there's some truth to that, right? If you build up a kid's self-worth enough, knowing that his team is going to be there for them, then when bad things happen, and inevitably in everybody's life, bad things are going to happen, and you're able to lean on your team, whether that's your family, whether that's your baseball team, football team, whether that's your friends, whatever it may be, whatever your team is, sometimes they're going to be stronger than you. You got to learn to lean on them, and reverse. Sometimes you're stronger than them. They need to lean on you.
And I got a little story. Last year, I was an assistant coach in spring ball with my Orioles team. We had a kid, and I won't name names, but he was good, right? Athletic, talented, great. He was a head case. I mean, he was, and I'd say probably every year I've had a kid kind of like this. I'd call him the helmet slammer, right? Come in and slam his helmet. Well, the first part of the year where I'm still trying to get to know him and not, be too hard on him. I'd joke and I say, "What did that helmet do to you?" You know what I mean? And he'd roll his eyes and be like, Well, I got to know the kid more throughout the season, right? Because I do that with all my players. I'll walk around the field one-on-one with somebody if they need whatever. I got to know him, right? And his dad coached with us too. And his dad was so hard on him. Like,
I've seen that so much.
I mean, used him for every example. And then if he didn't do the example right, then he reamed him out. I mean, it was hard. It's hard. And you do see it a lot. You do see a lot of times coaches, kids, they're like, sometimes the coach is the hardest on them. My son would probably say that about me.
Yeah, but it's different. Sometimes you look at, their potential. So if you know their potential and you know they're not working up to their potential, that's different. But
that's correct.
But the potential's got to be realistic. You cannot live vicariously through your children.
Well, and there's a difference between like being stern, but also it's a blend, right? It can't just be all stern and all da, right? And it can't be all fluffy and sunshine and butterflies. It's somewhere in the middle. That's with everything in life. It's somewhere in the middle. This kid never got any praise from his father, right? Any. And man, I said I'm proud of you more in the first couple of weeks of meeting him than I think his father did. I don't think he said it once the whole season. And I did say something to his father at the end of the season, and that's not my, I don't try to do that because that's his own kid, whatever. But I said, yo, your son, man, he was probably the best kid on our team. Like, was there any recognition at any point you were going to give that to him? Well, so to make a long story short, head case. Slamming, bad at, and it would ruin his game. So if he had a bad first inning, forget it. He was done the next 5 innings, right? And it was hurting our team, man. He was one of our he was our leader, right? So I finally, and there was a lot of kids on the team that were kind of criers. So it was week 4, we lost. And we came off of 3-game losing streak. So we had won our first game, and so now we were 1-3. I pulled all the kids aside. I said, listen, I will order a pallet of tissues from Amazon to be here after next game so we can all sit down and cry together. I want to cry when we lose. It stinks. It hurts, right? We work so hard. Losing's hard. But you can't cry during the game, right? During the game is going to do nothing but show the opponent, we got you. Got you right where you want us.
That's why there's no crying in baseball.
Well, they all looked at right, and they knew me as the candy. I give candy to everybody. I give high fives. And I was like, look, you guys look at me like I'm your friend, and I will be your friend. But I didn't sign up to be your friend. I signed up to be your coach, right? So I got to tell you, the crying and the woe is me and the feeling sorry just because one thing didn't go your way. You got 10 other opportunities in the game to make it go your way. But you guys are missing that because you're checking yourselves out. It was like their mouths hit the ground. They're like, oh, whoa, where'd fun, happy candy coach go?
Well,
we didn't lose a game after that. For the next 8 games, went all the way to the championship.
That gets to my point, and that's why I think I named this episode appropriately. You empowered those kids towards victory, towards becoming what they can be, to meeting their potential. You didn't bury them like this, coach, because I've seen a lot of those guys. And what happens to those kids? They get into high school and they just, the sports becomes a job and they don't want to do it anymore. My father was like that. And by the time I was done playing, I was done.
Yeah.
I got an injury and I almost celebrated getting an injury. And that was my excuse to get out.
Yeah.
I ripped my groin muscle. I'm like, oh, well, guess can't play no more. Ah, shucks. Damn.
I had a best friend in high school who was like that. He had a scholarship to Penn State. He was offensive line. He was the guy. His dad checked him out.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Never played a college snap because he said he did it out of spite for his dad. I said, that's going to be a chain of regret. You're going to wish you didn't do that just to say, hey, screw you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's we are our kids' own worst enemies a lot of the time, especially when we coach our own kids.
But.
Well, listen, Jeremy, we are coming to the end of this thing. Why don't you give our audience where we can find you? Throw out some plugs.
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on under Jeremy Campbell, or you could follow my youth sports page, Fast Feet. You can find me on Instagram under
Jay Campbell.
Jay Campbell.
We'll put it underneath you for a lower third.
And TikTok as well, under Fast Feed on that.
Yeah, I just saw you on TikTok.
Oh, and YouTube under Culture Collabs. That's where my culture collabs hub is. So.
Yeah, you did this interview with a guy that I know. Yeah, I remember. It was a while ago though. So like I said, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and I end every show the same way. You know, from where you are now and how you connect to these kids, it has to come from a deep, dark place of some suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So going through this, your youth sports and your health issues and your addiction issues in order to get to where you go, suffering has had to have taught you something because it's the best teacher in the world. So if I had to ask you all that suffering that you went through in order to get to where you are today, what has it taught you?
It's going to sound weird, but suffering taught me to never give up, because the other side of that fence doesn't look as light. You know what I'm saying?
They say there's only 2 constants in life, and that are 3 constants. You're going to be born, you're going to die, and you're going to pay taxes. I think they need to add a fourth one in there, is you are going to suffer.
Yeah.
That is life.
Yep.
But how you come out of suffering, that's going to tell you who you are.
Builds character. So
Jeremy, I thank you so much for coming in here. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Thank you for having me.
And listen, I appreciate you, brother, and I'm glad I have you as a friend.
Thank you. Likewise.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Empowerment with Jeremy Campbell. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Don't be a sit-on-the-bucket person, either in sports or life. Body language tells us everything, so you better pay attention. Sports teaches life lessons way more than athletics. Sometimes the coaches get coached on life by their team, but most importantly, work hard so regret can't creep in. So that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Clapper, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you next time.